Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, distinguished guests, and folks of all stripes, put your hands together for the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. Houston, we have Paul Salazar Jr.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast, your Houston Astros podcast for diehard Astros fans from a diehard Astros fan. I'm Paul Salazar Jr., your favorite diehard Houston Astros fan podcaster that you are currently listening to right now. I'm a writer, clown, retired performer, and multi-hyphenate. I'm a Houston native, and of course, I have the receipts to prove it. Yeah, I've been ice skating in the Galleria, and yeah, I went to the Chili's afterwards for some apps and drinks, so get off my back about it, okay? I've spent the last decade or so as a comedy writer in Los Angeles, and now I'm podcasting. Welcome to said podcast. This is the Space Cadet Sports Podcast that was born out of my Substack, the Space Cadet Sports blog, if you will. What my brother lovingly calls Oh, hi, Carla. My co-host is already not happy with my line reading, so we're just going to go ahead and barrel through this. But yeah, my brother calls it the Paul Broad Pod Ball Blog. Here, at the podcast, we try not to be doom and gloom Astros fans, or worse, the national media Astros haters. We try to love up on the team and root for them, and, try to discuss the ins and outs of what's going on with our beloved baseball team without resorting to too much homerism. Keyword try. We try to be reasonable and not too hot-takey or reactionary. Welcome to the podcast. We're recording here from sunny Los Angeles today. This week we are getting a bit of a heat wave, like I'm sure everywhere else, or most places in the United States is. At least I am joined by someone who is not very excited about this heat wave and was hoping summer was over after Labor Day. I'm joined as always by my co-host and co-producer, Carla the dog, the Roz to my Frasier. She is here with me today. She is getting comfortable in her spot. So she definitely was letting me know that she was trying to get under the fan there. So we have the fan going on in the background for her. She may get on mic with one of her, just patented hot takes that she goes off on from time to time, and we just let her go off here. Go off, queen. We want her to have a voice. Today, we're having an off-day Goof-Off podcast. There is no Astros game today. The last podcast I recorded was in the middle. Well, not right in the middle. I mean, it's hard to have a middle of a baseball series, but in the middle of the Kansas City Royals series before Labor Day weekend really took off there, I was like, I'm going to try to take a couple days off of podcasting. I let you know that I would be back for the off-day Goof-Off podcast, and I fulfilled that promise. I was true to my word. Here I am. Today, we are going to talk about that last game of the Royal Series, Game 4. We're briefly going to recap that. If you want a little more extended notes on that, you can go to the Substack, as mentioned earlier. That Substack website is spacecadetsports.substack.com. Go to the Substack, check out that article about Game 4. We are going to recap it briefly today as well. We're going to talk about how sweep it is, and then travel to Cincinnati for the tough loss yesterday and ponder about JV. We're going to talk about what the heck is happening with Kyle Tucker and his fractured Shin, and how emotional are you about it today? We'll talk trust rankings. Trust rankings happen today. I've talked a big game about doing some trust rankings. We're actually going to drop that today on the off-day Goof-Off. We're going to talk Texans captains. That's right, the Houston Texans, that is, not any kind of law enforcement in the Texans. We're talking about football here. We have football season is upon us in Houston, and it is the first time in quite some time that we're going into a football season excited about winning. Not just excited about potential, excited about winning. So I know H-Town is full of love for the Houston Texans, so I want to bring y'all some Texans news as well. We'll talk about the captains. We'll talk about much more today on this off-day goof-off. We have a big podcast today, so let's jump right in. Let's not dilly-dally any further. Let's not do a stilted, percussive, staccato word thing with your sentences and actually get to the content. Here we go, folks. We are talking about Game 4. The Astros complete the sweep 7-2 of the Kansas City Royals, and honestly, I would not, of course, I'm sure I mentioned on the podcast, I'm sure I mentioned somewhere, at least to one of you in talking in passing, that I was hoping that the Astros would sweep the Royals, especially after dropping the series to the Philadelphia Phillies. We needed to get some wins, but I was not expecting them to sweep the Royals because the Royals have been a good team. Now, hilariously, though, the Royals are the third team in their division currently, and in the AL West, I believe. I have to look it up because I'm drawing a blank here. I believe they are the AL West. Oh my goodness, the AL Central was what I was thinking there. Forgive my slip there. Yeah, the Kansas City Royals are third in the AL Central. It's they're 75-64 on the season now. They're third in the Central. Just shows you how strong that Central division is, with the Cleveland Guardians leading with 79 wins. The Minnesota Twins have 75 wins, but only 62 losses, so they're a couple of games ahead of the Kansas City Royals there. We're going to keep those standings up. We'll probably have to reference those later, Paul. Maybe you have that up before you record the podcast. But the off-day goof-off has, chiller vibes. So that's definitely what I'm going with there. Folks, I'm going to have to turn that fan on to air conditioning for my little girl there. So sorry, excuse the beep, but we have to get this air conditioned for this little pup. Truly, it was a great sweep for the Houston Astros. It was dominant. It put the league on notice. It's reminding people that this team is for real. They're not just the boogeyman that pops up every fall to scare you for Halloween. This team can win against big clubs here. The game was pretty quiet into the fourth inning when Jordan hit his first homer at home in quite some time. I believe that was July 22nd was his last home run, and then it was supported by a John Singleton 2-run homer, his 12th of the year. In this game as well, Jordan got his 30th home run of the season in the 6th inning, putting the team up 4-1 at that point in the game. Just side note here, I mentioned it in the article as well. Jordan now has 30 home runs for the past 4 straight years. That is incredible. You are witness. We are spoiled by the greatness of the Houston Astros, definitely led by some of the great slugging by Jordan Alvarez. Jeff Bagwell had 30-plus home run seasons, definitely a player beloved from my youth. He went 8 years straight with 30-plus home runs. We are witnessing Jordan right now. I think he can break that record. He is still young. Jordan still looks incredible. We just get to see how far Jordan can go. I did mention this game. We need to get past this game pretty quickly. But, this game was 4-1 at the time. That run actually came off of a Yuli Gurriel single for the Kansas City Royals. That was bizarre to see. We're definitely happy to see Yuli Gurriel, contribute to a team. But to contribute to another playoff AL team was tough. He did get a big hit there. It was good to see him back and to play the tribute video for the famous Cuban baseball player Yuli Gurriel, famous Houston Astros legend. In the game as well, for some of you who might think I might have this wrong, that this is a little deja vu, but Bobby Witt Jr. homered off of Hector Neris in this game as well. He did it in the previous game, and he did it in this game. The Royals cut the gap 2-4 at that point with Neris in the game. In the bottom of the 8th, though, Yainer Diaz doubles his 22nd of the year to score Doobie. The score is now 5-2, and JP3 knocks in Tuve and Yainer with a single, putting the game at 7-2 at that point. The offense in this game, obviously, getting 7 runs was big. Jordan and Doobie both had a 2-hit game. The team, on a total, had 7 runs, 9 hits, 7 RBIs, 2 walks, 9 strikes, and obviously 3 home runs, bringing the slugging in this game to help get that lopsided number. The team was 2 for 4 with runners in scoring position and left 3 on base. So overall, a very efficient game that was made efficient by some long balls. Obviously, not only do the Chicks dig the long ball, but I dig the long ball. I think the Houston Astros offense this season has been its most potent when they're able to get some home runs from the middle of their lineup. And it doesn't have, it doesn't have to be 3 home runs a game. We don't need, it's great when Jordan has a multiple home run game, of course. But, if Jordan's willing to do that every game, please, Jordan, don't let me stop you. Don't let me stand in your way, big guy. Please do that. But if you're not able to do that, just getting a home run, getting a Jordan home run, getting some slugging from Diaz, getting multiple extra base hits is what this team needs to succeed right now. And with Tucker being out of the lineup, we'll get to it, don't worry. With Tucker being out of the lineup for as long as he has been, there hasn't been as much protection or power from the middle of the lineup as we were expecting. And, this team has found some offensive troubles at time. They're also finding ways to win, though, which is encouraging. And when you don't have the long ball, it is a little harder for this lineup to particularly do it. So I'm wanting more long balls. Moving ahead, goodness, we need to get past this first game, folks. Ronald Blanco started this game. He had a great battle. Lately, his games have not gone as deep or has been as dominant as his games earlier in the season, but he's still out there battling, and this 6-man rotation is providing the rest and coverage for Ronald Blanco to still go out there and contribute, especially during this stretch when the Astros needed 6-man rotation. Ronald Blanco went 5 innings, gave up 3 hits, walked 4 batters, and had 3 strikeouts. Now that the long stretch of games is over and the Astros are in the September stretch of their playoff push, there is the high possibility that the Astros are going to put Ronald Blanco in the bullpen to get him some rest and to maybe give him a break in maybe one turn of the rotation or something like that. It's not because they don't like Ronald Blanco anymore or don't trust where he's trending. The man is just straight up tired. He is a converted reliever to a starter. He's pitched an amazing amount of innings. He has been dominant this season. It's just time to give the guy a little bit of a break to hopefully get this team to a playoff push. After the Ronald Blanco start, Taylor Scott came in, had a bit of a shaky inning, but still picked up his 8th hold of the season, going that whole 6th inning, giving up 2 hits, giving up a walk, 1 run for an earned run, and picking up 2 strikeouts along the way. After that, Hector Neris came in the 7th, pitching that whole inning. He obviously gave up that 1 home run to Bobby Witt, giving him a hit, a run, and an earned run, and he also picked up a strikeout, and he picked up his 4th hold on the season, which is crazy because it really shows that the Chicago Cubs weren't using Neris to his best abilities, probably. He's more of a setup guy now than a closer, so the fact that he only has 4 holds shows that they weren't using him as a setup guy. Then Abreu came in the 8th. Abreu got pitched the inning, only gave up a hit. By that point, it was no longer in hold territory, and because of that, there was no use for high leverage reliever. Caleb Ort came in, who has been strong this season. He pitched the inning and closed out the game. Then the Astros went to Cincinnati for a weird 3-game series with a day off in the middle of it. So yesterday, the Astros went to Cincinnati, played their first game, on Labor Day and enjoy a day off today. They're just kind of getting the Astros back for work in Labor Day. They're like, hey, you can take a day off. No one's really gonna notice a weird day off in September. Don't sweat it. Only some weird podcaster will complain about it. So in this game, the Astros, sadly, I'm over here vamping because I don't want to get to it, but the Astros lose the game yesterday in one of the easiest to swallow losses on the season in a weird way. I guess it's because we're coming off of sweeping the Royals. We know that Justin Verlander is kind of working his way back to full strength and to full health. We know who JV is, so out of all the pitchers on the staff, we can give him a pass on some struggles more than most. So this game was kind of caused by JV's struggles, so I feel like all of us kind of collectively, agreed, he'll win some, you lose some. You can't be that mad at JV. The Astros were hurt by Justin Verlander having a little bit of a control issue in this game. He did walk his first three batters, which is kind of the headline and was kind of the point in the game, of course. 3 batters in after 3 consecutive walks, me being like, okay, well, this is going to be a tough one. This is going to be one of those battle games, So I think going into it, setting the bar low for expectations, we kind of knew it was going to be a long one. He kept missing most of the game, which wasn't helped by a very inconsistent umpire that was so frustrating to watch. And y'all know me, I'm always saying these umpires are part of the game. It's like the walls that move in the stadiums. Sometimes you get a good umpire, sometimes you get a very inconsistent umpire. It's part of the game. It's very frustrating when it's this consistent of a zone. It's tough for the pitchers, it's tough for the hitters. So both teams were dealing with an inconsistent zone. It wasn't like a lopsided zone, which is even more frustrating when it seems like the umpire only has an eye for a zone for one team over another. This was just, a bad zone. It was consistently inconsistent. So you just have to chalk that up to being part of the game. Justin Verlander went 4 2/3 of an innings pitched. He gave up 8 hits, 5 runs, 5 earned runs, 4 walks. So he only walked 1 batter after those first 3 walks, which was an improvement, but only struck out 3 batters in this game for Justin Verlander. So definitely a tough one. There was a moment in the 5th inning where Joe Espada, it looked like he was going to pull Justin Verlander because Justin Verlander was struggling. He had men in scoring position. The game was still tied. He was looking shaky. Joe Espada went to the mound. This game was called by Todd Callis, TK, and Jeff Baggy on the call. At least I believe that was apparent. It definitely was Bagwell. It had to be TK. I'm just blanking right now. But yeah. So anyway, TK was like, "Oh, here comes Espada to pull Verlander," and Bagwell was like, "No ways that's happening. There's no way." And sure enough, Verlander kind of shook him off. I don't know if that was the intention or if they were kind of telling Verlander like, okay, this is your last batter, or okay, this is what we're looking for. But either way, perhaps it would have been better to pull Verlander there, but instead the Astros kind of just let him live in it and potentially are okay with wearing an L for trusting your veteran pitcher and letting him get his reps in. It's kind of like an April game where he's kind of still in an extended spring training, trying to sharpen his things up, finding little tweaks here and there to kind of get in his rhythm and get in his zone. But instead of dealing with batters that are coming out of spring training, you're dealing with batters that have seen stuff all season long and they're ready to hit. They're already warm. So, I'm not mad at Espada for letting him pitch. I'm not mad at Verlander for being a competitor and wanting to stay out there. After sweeping the Royals and being in Cincinnati with a Hall of Fame pitcher up there, you ride the Hall of Fame arm and let him try to work those kinks out so that he is usable in the postseason and confident. Unfortunately, the Astros get caught with a blooper single that goes right between Jose Altuve, John Singleton, and I believe it was Hayward that was out there in this game in right field. It was a tough, unlucky hit, unlucky bounce, but that's the way baseball goes. The Reds go up at that point in the game, and Justin Verlander has to be pulled. At this point in the game, Verlander gets pulled. The Reds are up 4-2. Ork goes in, picks up a third of an inning, gives up a hit, and that's Ort's day. At that point in the sixth inning, Espada goes with Caleb Ferguson, who pitches 2 innings, gives up 3 hits and a walk, but picks up 4 strikeouts as well. Ferguson, he's just one of those guys that he can kind of make you nervous, but he can get in and out of trouble that, is kind of like Hector Neris does. But, for all the mistrust of Ferguson, he really has been not really been getting out of trouble lately. So you're really happy that he's not giving up runs. Then Forrest Whitley, a Forrest Whitley sighting. Forrest Whitley was called up for the September call-ups, like the M&M's commercial. He does exist. A lot of Astros fans have thought that Forrest Whitley was just it was just a myth that I made up to make them scared, to make them think that the Astros have more pitching in their farm system than they really do. But Forrest Whitley came in, he pitched an inning, he gave up a hit, he gave up a walk, but he did get 3 big strikeouts to get out of that inning. On the offensive side of the ball, there's still no Bregman here. Breggy has been out. It's kind of frustrating, like I was saying in the past. I was very excited about the idea of Alex Bregman, first baseman of the Houston Astros. If he's having this right shoulder issue, if throwing the baseball is a problem, I was hoping that Bregman could be okay with not fielding third base for a bit and maybe taking over some first, instead of having DeCinzo in there, maybe having some Alex Bregman in there every now and then. No disrespect to DeCinzo, but if I was happy and excited about a potential John Singleton, Alex Bregman platoon at first base, but it didn't seem like either Espada or Bregman were interested in that idea. Obviously, I don't know which one. I'm assuming that it's Bregman because most veteran players want to play their position only. So I get it if Bregman just doesn't want to play, but if, I just thought it could save his arm. He's obviously out there still hitting. So it's tough to see Bregman being out for an extended amount of time when the Astros are still needing to win games. Having that bat in this lineup could have been very helpful. The outfield in this game was lined up as left field Ben Gamel, center field Chas McCormick, and right field Jason Hayward. Jake Myers is on paternity leave, which left a spot open in the interim for Chas McCormick to come back up and get some more reps. He was 1 for 4 with a double, so it was good to see Chazzy get on the board, to see him kind of bounce back a bit. He's probably going to be back in the minors once Jake is back from paternity leave, but it is good to see him out there and to see him contribute and to see him smile. Yainer Diaz was 2 for 3 in this game with 3 RBIs. He tied the game in the third inning, and he had a 2 RBI single that's in the third inning, tying it 2 for 2 at that point in the game, and then he had a sac fly in the 7th. Yainer Diaz now has, for a second now, has had the most RBIs by a catcher in Houston Astros franchise history now, with 78 RBIs in this season. The second is actually, I don't know if a lot of y'all will know this, I definitely would not have guessed the top 3, but number 2 now is John Bateman with 70 RBIs in 1966, so going back to the 60s, that's the early days of the Houston Astros franchise. Then third is actually Mitch Molesky. He has 69 nice RBIs from the year 2000, a Conan O'Brien special there. In the year 2000, Mitch Molesky, I barely even remember that cat, but definitely he was on that squad. He hit a lot of RBIs that season, and that just flew under my radar. Number 4 is Alan Ashby with 63 from the 1987 team. Definitely had that Alan Ashby Mother's Cookie Astros card. Definitely know you, Alan. And then we have 62 RBIs from Brian McCann in 2017. And, if we go down the list a little bit, sorry, Joe Ferguson, the 6th and 7th is Craig Biggio and Yainer Diaz, both tied for 60. That's right, youngins. Craig Biggio was a catcher. He was a Houston Astros catcher in 1989. He got 60 RBIs that year. Yainer Diaz got 60 RBIs last season. So anyway, we're happy to see Yainer Diaz be who we thought he was and come into the Astros and just really start slugging. Once again, people are going to start talking because it's just a never-ending narrative with Astros fans. It's kind of crazy to me. It's like, well, if Dusty would have just started Yainer last season, if Yainer would have started last season, he would have had some times of struggle like he had this season. Only, this season when he had that kind of summer slump, he has a lot more experience behind him from last season, platooning and coming off the bench, being mentored by Martin Maldonado. So, I get it, but it's such a weird, like, kind of topic that it always bothers me. This was the season for Yainer Diaz to be the Astros starting first baseman, and he is showing that Dusty Baker was right to bench him and to let him learn first, because he is now bouncing back from his slumps and not having to worry about platooning with Martin Maldonado. He's platooning with Victor Caratini, who is behind him in the depth chart. To platoon with a guy ahead of you in the depth chart as a young catcher could mean you lose more time and can lose confidence. Here, he's named the starter. He goes through a slump. He gets subbed in and out a little bit, but he is still the starter and still maintains that confidence and that leadership. I think it's great. In this game, the offense could have used a little more help besides Yainer Diaz. Could have used Breggy, but they overall got 6 hits, 3 RBIs. They worked 5 walks and had 8 strikeouts, which I like that ratio a lot better. There's been a lot of high strikeout games. There's been a lot of low walks all season long. The Astros have not been working a lot of walks. They've been more aggressive as a team than they have in the past. So I don't mind that particularly, but overall, sometimes they're going to need to work some walks, and it's good to see them work some and to keep the strikeouts low here, even though it's a losing effort. They were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position, which obviously one extra hit could have really helped in this tight of a game. They left 8 men on base, and those missed opportunities really were what, especially with 2 outs and with men on base, men in scoring position, those missed opportunities ate the Astros up this game. We really need a win to get these headlines changed. So we're going to kind of talk about some of the headlines that are going around about the Astros right now. The Goof-Off, off-day podcast, it can only be goofy if there's goofy things to talk about. Sometimes it's just more my mentality than it is the headlines we're talking about. But the things we're talking about next is kind of tough. But the first one really is JV washed? Or is this slander? And right now, from where I'm sitting, it's a little bit of both. And I'm not trying to take the middle of the road. I'm not trying to give you a mild take or a beige take here. I really, truly think there is a little bit to both right now. I don't think JV's completely washed. I think what's happening right now is JV is older than you're used to him being. He's older than he's used to being. He is making adjustments to get back to where he needs to be, technique-wise, for his pitching shapes, for his efforts. He's kind of having to adjust in game. And, that's something that Justin Verlander's done a lot of. He's a Hall of Fame pitcher. He's a pitcher that has had to change kind of his mentality and the way he attacks batters in the last couple of seasons. This guy can adjust. This guy will make the adjustment. The problem is is that the Justin Verlander we're used to seeing doesn't exactly look like the guy that we've seen in his last 2 outings, maybe in his last 3 outings a little bit, And the thing is, everybody aged. Father Time is undefeated, truly. So everybody ages, and I think this is just Justin Verlander aging a little bit, and he's adjusting. He has to adjust if he wants to compete, and he is going to adjust, and he is going to compete. It just might be a little bit different than we're used to seeing JV compete. I don't think it's going to be that stark. I don't think that this, little neck injury really is going to completely change Justin Verlander overnight and he's going to be a completely different pitcher. I think he's just finding those adjustments, trying to find what is working and what isn't with his body right now. And I think that's something Ryan Presley has had to deal with this season as well. It's the same thing with Presley. I mean, to a little bit of a lesser extent, he's a professional. He's had to change things over his career. He's had to do things differently to find success, and he's done that in the past. But he's also dealing with a body that's limiting him more than it used to limit him. So I think that these adjustments, they will find and they will make, but we're hoping they find them sooner or later. It looks like Presley has found the adjustments, has found the right time off, is finding the right rhythm of games and situations to be put in to find some more success lately. We're hoping that JV can get there too, and I feel like he can. I feel like September is going to be his month. He's going to figure it out. It's just a matter of time. I do not think he's washed. I do not think that that we need to completely worry about Justin Verlander. But I do think that we need to consider that, this guy might not be the ace of the rotation anymore. But, he is the vet on the team. So in this week's edition of putting the cart ahead of the horse, I want to know, what's your playoff rotation? If we went to the playoffs, if we were so lucky as Astros fans for the season to end today, and we don't have to worry about that September playoff push and keeping those Mariners off our backs, if that happened, who would you want to see as your Houston Astros starting rotations in the playoffs? Who would you like to see in that starting rotation? Right now, obviously, we've just mentioned Justin Verlander, the Hall of Fame pitcher, the guy who has found success in the postseason, who is maybe still shaking allegations of World Series stuff, but is a dominant pitcher, is a no-doubt Hall of Famer. We have Justin Verlander. We also have ace of the season, Framber Valdez, the lefty that just doesn't quit, a guy that goes deep into games, a dominant pitcher, a ground ball pitcher. We have Hunter Brown, who has just been crazy good this past month, who has really sharpened his season up, who has shown that he is dependable, and he's out there to compete and to fight off these batters. Then we have strikeout king Spencer Arrighetti. The Spaghetti Man has really been showcasing double-digit strikeout games as of late. He's been showing that strikeout stuff that we saw in the minor leagues, or that some of us saw, or at least read about in the minor leagues, that he can adjust and bring that stuff to the major league level. His stuff isn't quite as highly rated as Yusei Kikuchi, but he is a pitching nerd who loves to figure out ways to compete at this level, and he is finding ways right now. Then, of course, I just mentioned him, Lisa Loeb, Yusei Kikuchi. I don't really know what I was trying to say. Lisa Loeb's Yusei Kikuchi, maybe, but Yusei Kikuchi has been a revelation as an Astro. He has shown high strikeout stuff. Him and Spencer Arrighetti have getting high strikeout rates. Yusei Kikuchi has been a great addition to this team. And then, of course, there's Ronel Blanco. Ronel Blanco, who had a no-hitter earlier in the season, who has just been dominant, who's, kind of run out of steam a little bit, but is still going out there and competing. Of those 6 pitchers, which four make your playoff rotation? You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think if I'm saying I'm picking the playoff rotation. If it's just my decision right now, as of today, Justin Verlander probably misses the cut. But you have to remember that playoffs happen in about a month. So, if we're considering that, we're considering Justin Verlander finding some more success, finding some time to find, to make some tweaks. And the fact that he's Justin Verlander, I don't think you can take him out of the playoff rotation. I think you have to slot him in there as number one unless he really starts showing that there's problems. And if that happens, they're putting him on the IL. I don't think they're being like, oh, it's okay, Justin, you'll come out of the bullpen. It's okay, Carla. Uh-oh. Someone's sneezing over there. I thought she was about to say something, but she's just sneezing. It's okay. Bless you, Carla. It's okay. So Carla is saying that I might be, speaking ill of Verlander. So we're putting Verlander in there at the ace, hopeful that he's going to figure it out. Then, of course, you got to go with Fromber. I think it's going to be Verlander, Fromber, Kikuchi. I feel like you go with the vets there, right? Verlander, Fromber, Kikuchi. I think Espada goes with the vets. Maybe not necessarily in that order. Maybe you go Verlander, Fromber, and this is where it's tough for me. I think because Brown's been doing it longer, you put Brown. Once again, I know what this is kind of like a you got to give it to the vets, but I think that's how the Astros do it. And I think right now, if you're really looking at it, you go Verlander, Fromber, Brown, Kikuchi. You have Blanco, who's been a reliever, come out of the pen, and you have Arrighetti, who has high strikeout stuff, who is in his rookie season. You have him, learn and have him come out of the bullpen and get some high strikeout rate stuff, because you want those relievers to have high strikeout rates as well. He's been incredible at those strikeout rates, so maybe you see if you can use him as a middle relief or long relief arm instead of as a starter. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think. Definitely let me know what your playoff rotation would be right now. I know I kind of cheated and said, well, if the standings stayed like they were today, but I also said, what would it be in September? So, maybe it's just wishful thinking. I am saying it's putting cart ahead of the horse, but this team, is projected to go to the playoffs and just has to keep competing to get there. So it is something we can start thinking about now. Let's go ahead and move on to some awards right now. The AL Rookie of the Month, give it up to your guy, Spaghetti. Spencer Arrighetti won AL Rookie of the Month. The AL Reliever of the Month was Josh Hader. Josh Hader had 13 1/3 inning pitched on the month with a .68 ERA, a .60 WHIP, and a .071 batting average against on the month. And the AL Pitcher of the Month is not an Astro. That's right, unfortunately, despite the fact that it was a great month for our starting pitchers. It's Bowden Francis from Toronto Blue Jays, the Canadian Astros. He had 5 starts on the month. He pitched 34 1/3 innings, had a 1.05 ERA, a .41 WHIP, and got 39 strikeouts. Those are incredible numbers. Just for reference, the Spaghetti Man had a .195 ERA, .90 WHIP, 47 strikeouts, and 32 1/3 innings pitched. And just because why not? We're already talking about awards. It's the one award I didn't mention here. The NL Pitcher of the Month was Blake Snell, making me eat my words. I still maintain that Blake Snell was not the best signing option for a starting pitcher for the Houston Astros at the beginning of the season. I'm still glad we didn't sign him, despite the fact that we could have used another starting pitcher at the beginning of the season and people were clamoring for him. I still maintain that it's good we didn't get Blake Snell, but he is making me eat my words that he's showing that he still got it, and he is still proving he is an amazing pitcher. So shout out Blake Snell for making me eat my words and showing everybody that you still have what it takes. I still think the Astros signing him would have been tough because he struggles at the beginning of the season, just like the Astros did. And who knows what would have happened if we would have had Snell instead of Hader. But that's all speculation. But still, apologies, Blake Snell. Now it's time for the breakdown, and Never Gonna Get It is definitely, I guess, a reference to Kyle Tucker not coming back from injury, and I don't think I'm ever going to get exactly what happened in this news story. So yesterday, Chandler Rome went on to the New York Times, I believe, or the New York Times reported or picked up a Chandler Rome story. I'm really not quite sure how that happened. I'm not that good of a journalist, obviously. But Chandler Rome reported that Kyle Tucker did fracture his shin, and the rumors started circulating. Joe Espada was asked after the game in Cincinnati if it was a fracture. Leading up to all of the speculative writing, all of the Astros batching and saying collusion, like Nick Kroll in the league, everybody's crying collusion. Everybody's saying the Astros are a nefarious organization. So let's kind of figure out what's happening here. This is a quote from Chandler Tucker about his fracture that he spoke to the media about. After this quote, after the swelling and everything calmed down, the continuing imaging revealed there was a little fracture in my shin, Tucker said. I just focused on my rehab from there. Hopefully, I can get back in games in the next couple of days. And that is kind of what the Astros and Kyle Tucker have been saying. It's what Espada and his agent have been tight-lipped about, but it does look like they are hopeful that Kyle Tucker will be back in the next couple of days. But they are also simultaneously telling us that, by the way, it was a fracture. So just the timing of this is why has everybody scratching their heads. Let's move on to this next Kyle Tucker quote. Let's hear it from the man himself. Quote, I think we did a pretty good job rehabbing it regardless. Time frame wise, it probably roughly would have been the same. Quote, I'm sorry, I'll take that quote again. Time frame wise, it probably roughly would have been the same. Obviously, you never know, but it is what it is at the time. I think the rehab process has gone pretty well, and I feel pretty good now. Just excited to get back out there. So Kyle Tucker isn't out there really expressing frustrations or misdiagnosis or anything like that. What it sounds like he's saying is that on subsequent, or actually let's just get to this Dana Brown quote. This Dana Brown quote also helps. So Dana Brown here on Monday, Dana Brown said today, after several rounds of medical imaging, we suspect there was some type of small fracture. As with all injuries of this type, once the fracture heals, it takes time for the muscles around the leg to regain strength. Tuck has worked extremely hard to get back on the field and thankfully is ready now to help us in September and in the postseason. End quote. So, from here, what it seems like is that the first image did not reveal a fracture. We were told it wasn't a fracture, and they just kind of went from there. After Tucker not really rehabbing quite as quickly as they thought, they did subsequent imaging, and those images shown that Tucker did have a fracture. I do not know the timeline in which that happened. I don't know if that happened week after they reported that there was no fracture. I don't know if that happened week from today, a week ago. They found that out, and they're like, oh, that makes sense. So, really, the media is spinning this as the Astros doing something malicious or hiding something or being insidious. And Dana Brown, is saying that that's not the case, that this is, just something they found off of subsequent imaging. Whenever the team does anything, it's going to be spun negative. It's the narrative that they like to push is that the Astros are constantly doing things wrong and twisting their mustaches while playing baseball, and they're out to get you, and they're gonna find your kid's little league team and make them hate baseball with their nefarious wrongdoings, and they're tainting the sport. Like, all of these crazy narratives about the Astros constantly get pushed. So anytime the Astros do anything that can be spun that way, that's how it is going to be spun, because people like their news, to make sense to their own simple world. Orange team bad. It's news is not about reporting. Sometimes it's about the emotion and the demographic you're selling to. The matter of the fact is the Astros seem to either bungle this diagnosis or they tried to save face by not mentioning it until they absolutely had to, whether it's like, oh, well, they're not asking about it anymore, so we're just not going to say anything and just kind of have an omission of this, omission of the facts. Or, at some point, what point did they know, and were they misleading the media? But then, there's also the thing, I think it's misleading the media. It's like, well, why exactly are you so frustrated about this? Is it just that the orange team is bad and this helps justify my petty hate? Or is this because, people like to gamble? Fantasy baseball, in-game betting, gambling apps have made it so gamblers need injury information to make bets. So maybe this has to do with people frustrated that the Astros aren't being clear, so that they're ruining money lines, and they're ruining gambling. So I think the organization doesn't really owe odd makers and gamblers clear injury reporting for gambling purposes, right? I think that if the team is not wanting to talk about an injury because it's going to give them better leverage in negotiations or trades and stuff like that, that is fine. But I think that the way the Astros have gone about dealing with this injury has been completely bungled and definitely opens the door for writers to say that they're up to no good. I don't think they are. Obviously, in the future, when Kyle Tucker is willing to talk about this at length, we will know for sure. We will know a whole lot more. Or when Dana Brown wants to talk to, and in the future, we will know how this situation was bungled a lot more. I don't know if that future is a week from now when Chandler Rome tells us about it, or when Kyle Tucker is retired and he goes on a podcast and tells us about it. But I don't think that I don't think this is as big of a story as people are making it out to be, especially because there's literal billionaires out there posting misleading facts about real life situations happening right now. Trump is literally out there lying to people's faces and misleading people left and right, and it's no big deal. Misleading and mishandling of facts is a real thing that's happening right now, and I'm not trying to downplay it, because if the Astros are misleading people, they need to explain why they're doing it. They do need to justify it a little bit. If it's just because they're wanting to have better leverage in negotiations, I understand that. But maybe you start talking to the media with a little bit more clarity, or you just frankly come out and say, we don't know right now. This is what we know, and this is how we're attacking it. I think they can just handle this a lot better. To me, this is a PR problem for the Astros. I think I don't know how they can completely bungle this as a PR issue. They need to figure out a way to report injuries better and disclose less information while still maintaining some kind of honest integrity, so that they won't get dunked on by the media. Because I really don't think this is that big of a deal. But at the same time, you can't downplay the fact that they, at some point were trying to be misleading, even if it was just a week ago. So I don't hate it. I think all teams kind of do this type of a thing. It's something that you do for negotiations. It's something that you do because you just don't want that injury, information out there, but because the Astros are doing it, it's definitely going to be seen in some kind of nefarious light. We will see going forward. I don't think there was any kind of weird foul play here. I don't think this is that big of an issue, but we do want to know more about it, so we will see going forward. But the biggest thing for me is I want Kyle Tucker back. I want Kyle Tucker happy. Kyle Tucker is ready to come back. Kyle Tucker is like, we did the best we can. It is what it is, and we're going forward. I'm ready to play baseball. So I don't think Kyle Tucker has been hurt here in any kind of way by the Astros. That would be the thing that would bother me if they're doing something that is going to cause a player damage. There has been things in the past about the Astros not bringing players back too early and not, that's been the thing in the past. Oh, the Astros bring back players too early. They're not clear about their injury list. They're bringing players back too early. It's okay, Carla. Oh yeah, Carla has strong feelings about this. She's Carla is so mad that she just really had to go off. Unfortunately, no, the pest control came by today and sprayed around the unit here, and the landlord didn't let me know, so Carla just completely went off. I'm shaking my fist in disgust at my landlord right now. You're the lord of the land, but you couldn't send me an email? Come on. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on away from the Astros PR problem here. Truly, as long as they're keeping their players safe and they're not bringing them back from injury too early, which it definitely doesn't seem like they're doing here with Tucker. It seems like they're making sure he's completely safe before they're bringing him back. It doesn't bother me that much, but there is implications of just making sure you're doing your best to communicate with the media as honestly as possible, or at least just saying no comment and moving on. There definitely is. They need a little bit of a PR helper there. I volunteer as tribute, Houston Astros, if you do want to hire me as a zero experience PR consultant. Let's try to have a little bit of fun here on the Off Day Goof-Off podcast. There has been a lot of talks about trust here on the podcast, with a couple of blown saves in the gauntlet that the Houston Astros just ran. Brian Abreu especially has warned a lot of that online hate, and haters, the haters, have always been existing and hating. So, it's got to a point where it's like, where exactly do I rank these Houston Astros bullpen relievers in trust? So we're doing a trust ranking today. Carla and I are here to help rank these relief pitchers and how much relief we feel when they take the mound. So let's, really quickly take a moment to remember how relief pitching is absolutely wild and can change quickly and on a whim. Remember 22 Rafael Montero? Remember Rafael Montero from a couple of months ago? It changes quickly and on a whim, and sometimes, the Hall of Fame relievers are the ones that always bounce back and always adjust and always keep competing. It's being a relief pitcher is a really tough gig. You have a really limited sample size to go up there and do amazing things in the world of baseball, and sometimes it doesn't always happen, and you have to adjust and you have to bounce back, and your form or your pitch selection one season is different from the next season. So, it's a really inconsistent wild ride being a regular, middle of the pack, run of the mill relief pitcher in Major League Baseball. The Astros generally have been very spoiled with finding great arms. So, it's just, all of this to say is I love all of these men. This is done tongue in cheek with how much I truly trust them. But let's get to our contestants. Come on down to Space Cadets Trust Rankings. Josh Hader, Caleb Ort, Taylor Scott, Ryan Presley, Forrest Whitley, Hector Neris, Ronel Blanco, who may join the pen this month, as I mentioned earlier, Caleb Ferguson, Brian Abreu, and featuring Seth Martinez, Sean Dubin, Brian King, and Rafael Montero, with musical guest Bobby Monahan. I don't know why he's a musical guest. I just like saying Bobby Monahan. Yeah, that really, I like that. I slowly morphed into Don Pardo. Obviously Bobby Monahan will not. You know what? I'm throwing Bobby Monahan in the list. Let's see here. So what we're going to do here is, ranking all of the arms that could potentially be on a playoff roster for the Houston Astros. In a trust system, even though, the qualifications are you have to potentially be on a playoff roster right now. We are grading them on a curve of how much I trust them in the regular season, because if it's a trust in the playoff, obviously those rankings would be a lot more difficult for me. I'm sure the playoffs will be will be graded on a much more difficult curve. Let's start with our F tier, and then the lowest tier here, and then we're going to reach the A tier, the best, and see if anyone can sniff the elite S tier. Spoiler alert, of course, somebody does. All right, so let's get to the F tier. We're going to start with the F tier. In the F tier, I definitely have Bobby Monahan, who was a late addition to this list, and now that I'm thinking about it, he is a great sketch performer. He's really good. I love the drunk uncle character, the skeleton in David S. Pumpkins. Bobby Monahan is definitely a great sketch performer, but for relief pitching, I don't know how much I trust him. Also, if we added him to the 40-man roster, we would have to make a move. It is past September 1st. So I don't even think he is eligible for the playoff roster, and unless they made some kind of special exemption for sketch performers to be added to the playoff roster. So he is F in the F tier for sure. Remember, this is just how I feel about them right now. Things can change. But right now, Whitley is also in the F tier. Forrest Whitley, he does exist. I'm glad that he's with the team. But right now, his sample size has been so low. There has been a lot of traffic in his outings. So I'm placing him there just because I don't quite know where to put him yet. I do like that he's a flamethrower. I have hope for Forrest Whitley, but right now I'm nervous when he comes into the game because I just don't know what to expect quite yet. Then also in the F tier is going to be Rafael Montero. Sorry, cuz I know Cousin Terry definitely rates Montero higher. I know, cuz we disagree here, and that's okay. Montero's probably in a higher tier for a lot of other people, and for some people, I'm sure he's just completely off the list because they don't want him on the team. I do think there is a situation in which Rafael Montero does pitch for the Houston Astros at some point this season. I do think it can still happen. I think the fact that he has had some success in the minor leagues and the fact that he accepted his assignment and he is working with the team means that he is being a team player, and if he finds enough success, he can be called back up. But I just don't know how I feel about him until I see him and how he's adjusted. In the D tier, we're moving to the D tier. D is for Dubin right now. Sean Dubin, he's been the mop-up man for the Houston Astros this season, kind of the long reliever who took over that Brandon Bielak spot earlier in the season. Now it's the Sean Dubin spot. He's been doing it longer. Dubin's a good pitcher. I do like him, but maybe it's just because of the situations he gets brought into that makes me think that the team doesn't trust him, or maybe it's just a little bit of inconsistency this season. But he's kind of in that D tier because I think because the situations he gets placed into hasn't really inspired confidence, I feel like, from Espada, so I haven't seen him get to excel that much this season, but he has been a great contributor. In the C tier, tier, we have Caleb Ferguson. And I think that Ferguson, he might be, this might be me still having a bad taste in my mouth from him. His first couple outings as a Houston Astro, he has not been giving up that many runs lately. He's figured out to kind of solidify here, but I'm nervous of Fergie still. Then I have Seth Martinez, the Magic Man, who had a really great season, but he just kind of ran out of steam. He got sent to AAA, and then we just haven't heard much from him since. I do like Seth Martinez. Since he hasn't been used at the major league level a lot, I'm unsure as to what situations he'll be in. But earlier in the season, this guy was a B or an A. Martinez was the Magic Man. I felt that if he was coming in with runners on, he was the best arm we could get. So he does have that upside. Also in the C tier is Brian King. Brian King, I think, is the most trustworthy lefty on the squad. The fact that he isn't with the major league team right now and he is, in the minors is why he's also in the C tier. He is a rookie. He does throw a lot of strikes. He hasn't run into that much trouble. I love the fact that he throws strikes, but I just, it has been a limited sample size from King, but I love the ceiling for Brian King. Now moving on to the B tier. The B tier, we're getting to some grades that you can bring home to mom. Congratulations to Taylor Scott. Definitely, a B tier pitcher. I trust Scott. I love what he's been doing this season. If he wasn't so taxed this season and had so many innings pitched and, definitely has lost a little sharpness as of late, he probably could even be an A tier pitcher. Same thing with Presley. Ryan Presley is in this B tier. I think Ryan Presley has been shaky this season, so for him the B tier might be a step down, but he still has that top quality tier potential, and he's shown it in his last two outings. I get a little nervous with Presley, the way he's been trending this season and how hittable he has been, having less whiff and that kind of stuff. Also in B, I have Caleb Ort. This is a big crew here. Caleb Ort, Big Shady. I really trust this guy. I like what he's been bringing to the team. I feel like Caleb Ort is in that tier with Taylor Scott from what he's bringing right now. Also, I have Hector Neris in this. Okay, so Heart Attack Hector, as I lovingly call him, he gets in and out of trouble sometimes, but he's dominant. He likes to pitch in the big moment. He definitely can let some base runners on sometimes, but he loves that big moment. I love to see him in it, but sometimes he just makes me a little bit nervous. And I'm also going to put Ronel Blanco in this B tier. I've seen Ronel Blanco out of the pen last season. I think Ronel Blanco is great. I love the guy, but I think to get him into a more trustworthy role in the bullpen, I would have to see a little bit more of what he's going to be like as a bullpen reliever. Now, on to the A tier. The A stands for Abreu. Brian Abreu is in the A tier for me. I really trust this pitcher. I think though he has struggled, even though he has been overly used in this bullpen, kind of by necessity because of the struggles of this bullpen at times, the struggles of Presley and the injuries of Presley. Brian Abreu's had to step up and be the setup guy as well at times. I think Abreu has really done great. He really has not, and I know it's been shaky. He hasn't blown as many saves. I think, you can go back to that podcast where I compare him to Hader and him to Presley and him to the Yankees closer. I do think that Abreu, his blown saves, we wear them a little harder because we've needed wins this season. Losing those close games have been tough, but I really do trust Abreu. And in the S tier, I do have Hader. I think Josh Hader right now, the way he's been going, I have not been getting nervous. Yes, he can give up a home run from time to time, but Josh Hader has been him, and he has been consistent. And right now, where we sit, he is in that S tier for me. So yeah, definitely reach out. Let me know how you rank these pitchers. If I definitely, I know there's going to be people who disagree or people who want to rearrange them or just think that I flat out got it wrong. Let me know what you think. Moving on, folks, we're going to go ahead and move on to the Houston Texans segment of the podcast. Are you ready for some football? And by football, I do mean American football. Yes, very confusing. The Houston Texans named their 2024 team captains, and I just wanted to let you know who those names were real quick, Texans fans. We have tackle Laramie Tunsil, quarterback C.J. Stroud, safety Jimmy Ward, defensive end Will Anderson Jr., linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair, long snapper John Weeks, and wide receiver Stephon Diggs. Those are your Houston Texans team captains. We are ready for the season to start. We are ready for that Colts game in Houston. Get your tailgating ready. Get ready for some football. And speaking of tailgating, speaking of football, I wanted to also briefly mention we are running out of time on this podcast, but I'm hurrying up to get there. We have a fantasy football update, folks. I wanted to talk fantasy football. I love playing fantasy football. I'm in the league with my friends that I've been in for quite some time. I love playing with them. They're my buds. I like hanging out and goofing off with them and having an excuse to smack talk with them. I do think. This season is the most excited I've been about football in quite some time. I've always been very competitive as a fantasy football player, but I'm ready to win a chip this season, and you can follow me on my quest to win that chip. Last year, I almost won it, folks. I had an amazing team that fell apart in the semifinals. My last year's roster, it seems like I fleeced. It seems like I am in a fantasy football league with a bunch of theater people. My my quarterbacks were C.J. Stroud and Tua Tagovailoa. My running backs were Breece Hall, James Conner, Alvin Kamara, Raheem Mostert, and Kyron Williams. My receivers were Puka Nacua, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Deontay Johnson, and I had Kittle as my tight end, and I just kind of streamed the rest of the roster. Nobody else was that consistent, but those were obviously the big names on my team. The names on my team when I lost that final game, for sure. I lost by 0.08 of a point, with 158 points in a season after averaging about 160 points, it felt like. And, I'm not bitter, but it was a tough loss, and I am ready to win. This year, I was barbecuing a chicken while I was zooming and drafting, and I don't know why I needed to multitask that much, and I also don't know what I've done. I'm a little worried about my roster, but I'm worried about my roster every season, and going into the season, I win. I win off of waivers if I have a good season, my pickups. But in a 12-team half PPR league, is it 12-team? I'm like, wait a second. Like, how many teams? Like, I think we went down to 10. Yeah. Let's see. Where's the league here? No, we are a 12-team. Okay, I wasn't crazy. I thought I was going crazy there. But in a 12-team half-point PPR league is what we're playing in. This is my roster going into week 1. So laugh if you wish. I have Dak Prescott. Breece Hall was my keeper that cost me a second rounder. I have James Conner, Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, Dalton Kincaid, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Cameron Dicker, the kicker, the Bucks D, Zeke Elliott, Tyler Lockett, Joshua Palmer, Jameson Williams, and Nick Chubb as a stash. It goes back and forth as to how I feel about this team. And we will see once I kind of get the ball rolling. I'll update you as to if I am dominating my league or if my fantasy league is dominating me. And obviously today, being the off-day Goof-Off podcast, we are sitting around here twiddling our thumbs, Carla and I, trying to figure out, since we don't have an Astros game to watch, what the heck are we going to watch? So I'm just sending this out there for y'all. What are you going to watch instead of the Astros game today? We were thinking about maybe picking up a minor league game, but maybe we'll just go, we'll watch some TV instead. So I just wanted to give you some quick TV shows that I have been liking. It's Acapulco on Apple TV. Shout out to Bernardo Cubria, a good friend of mine who writes for that show. Check out Acapulco. I love it, especially if you're looking for a comedy, if you're looking for like a bilingual comedy, if you're looking, it's really good. I should have wrote down more notes to kind of sell it, but I do love Acapulco. It's fun, it's silly, and it's different than what you watch on from a regular sitcom, and I think it's smart and fun. Then there's Shogun. Shogun, I believe, was the best drama of the year. I absolutely loved that. I thought that was doing what Game of Thrones wants to do. I think Shogun was really good. I also I haven't watched it, but I want to watch that Batman Caped Crusader, that animated show. I watched Carla and I put on cartoons, quote unquote, for Carla, so I watch cartoons with Carla while I work and write, and it's like, oh, this is for her. She likes cartoons. So we watch a lot of Batman, the animated series, so I'm stoked to see what that's about. But yeah, this has been a long podcast. Let me know what you're watching. You give me some recommendations too, and I'll come back with some more. Tomorrow's game, it's actually time for Spaghetti Time in Cincinnati. Spencer Arrighetti, this previous month's pitcher, American League rookie of the week, I should say, is pitching against Nick Martinez, 34-year-old right-handed pitcher who's 6-6 with a 3.78 ERA, a 1.13 WHIP on his career, and a 1.13 WHIP on his season. On his career, his numbers are 4.24 for an ERA and a 1.35 WHIP. He previously spent time with the Rangers, if his name is familiar. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap off this off-day Goof-Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the Space Cadet Sports Podcast. We very much appreciate every listen, every follow, every like. If you would be so kind to give us some more of them good likes and follows, subscriptions, maybe even rate and review the podcast. If you've listened this far, consider giving that 5-star rating. It really does mean a lot for a small podcast like me. It gets more eyes on the podcast, more ears on the podcast, I should say. It helps spread the podcast far and wide. If you'd be so kind also to check out the Substack, the Space Cadet Sports Substack, that is spacecadetsports.substack.com, where you can put your email into that field. You get every single post, every single podcast, video podcast, and meme drop emailed directly to you. Or if you're like a mobile and iPad guy like myself, download the Substack app, search Space Cadet Sports. You see that orange astronaut, click subscribe. Click that you want notifications instead of emails. You get notifications on your phone instead of emails, and I like that experience a lot more. And there's so many other authors and podcasters out there on Substack. It's definitely a very fun app. Go check that out. Reach out on social media. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your trust rankings are. Let me know what you're watching. You can actually find me on social media at Paul Salazar Jr. Let me know what you're thinking. You could go to the Substack, spacecadetsports.substack.com, and comment on the posts there directly. Or now you can call into the podcast like a radio show, like a sports call-in show. You can call in. Leave me a voicemail at speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports. That is speakpipe.com/Space Cadet Sports to call in to the podcast and let me know what you're thinking. Thank you so much for listening. Oh, as always, if you want to find Carla's pictures on Instagram, they're at good.dog.carla. You can find those puppy pictures. Sorry, Carla, didn't mean to not plug you there. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. We really do appreciate it. Little podcasts like this for all those H-Town diehard fans out there. We very much appreciate all the Houstonians that are listening and sending to other Houstonians and liking, subscribing, and rating. Thank you so much for all the love. It's very much appreciated. Remember to be the best that you can be. Keep your head up, kid. And as always, vamos Astros.